Sydney Aldridge has been working as a casting director since 2015.
She has worked with casting directors such as Sasha Robertson and Wicksteed, as well as going freelance under the name Sydney Aldridge Casting.
Sydney has recently been accepted as a member of the Casting Directors Guild. Hello, Sydney.
Hello, how are you?
Not bad, not bad. How are you?
I'm super good. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Super good is great. So today we've got Sydney on the podcast, this episode of The Essentials, to talk all things, everything casting directors, which I feel like you are the most misunderstood breed of creatives in the industry.
Hilarious. Misunderstood. What a word.
Breed.
Breed.
I
can't wait to unpick all of this. It's going to be fun.
A minute in and I've already insulted our guest. This is going well. We'll crack on. We'll endeavour.
It takes a lot more to insult me. Don't worry.
Don't worry. We've got 50 minutes for me to manage that. We're good. So thought we'd start off with a pretty simple question. What is a casting director, Sydney?
Oh, so it's hilarious. When I first got this sort of question sent through, because yes, I did get some of these questions sent through first, so I wasn't completely bombarded.
Give away the behind the scenes.
Spoilers. So I Googled it and I was like, what does Google say that a casting director is? So it says the person who puts people in plays, film or television shows, which, you know, essentially is what a casting director is. It's a bit more than that, I'd say. You know, we're kind of the middleman between actors and the director and the producers and stuff like that. And I'd say more than anything, my job is to just facilitate the director's sort of vision, and try and make that a reality in some way. It's also my job to like challenge a director on certain, you know, projects and certain ideas and stuff like that. So for example, if a director came to me and said, okay, we've cast all the leads, that's all fine, we now need to do the supporting characters and I need a white male in his 30s to be a doctor, then it's kind of my job to go, okay, so they're a doctor, why do they need to be white? Why do they need to be male? And why do they need to be in their 30s? And it's kind of my job to go, there's other ways we could do this. You know, there's other actors that we could see for this. And it's kind of my job to facilitate that, really.
Amazing. So I always wonder when you're doing the casting process and you and your whole team select certain actors, how much of a say do you have when it comes down to the final?
So I do think this is a current sort of misconception about the casting process. I think people tend to think that casting directors have the final say, and we just don't ever have the final say. You know, my job is kind of done when I've brought a load of actors into a room, or I've got a load of actors to tape, or we've done Zoom auditions, or however we're doing it. If a director or the production team say to me, yeah, I think we found it, don't know who it's going to be yet, but yeah, we're really happy, then that's my job done.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, yes, I facilitate the offering process and things like that, but it's very rare that we get a final say on who gets the job. It's quite a common misconception.
Great. And sticking to job roles of casting directors and in that bracket, can you tell us the differences between a casting assistant, a casting associate, and a casting director? Because as actors, you look up, you know, who works for what casting directing company, and you're like, okay, they're an assistant, they're an associate, they're a director, and you're trying to work out where people are, what people's roles are going to be. And can you shed a light on that, possibly?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I didn't know when I first started working in casting what the difference was. I think the easiest way to explain it is the casting director is the company. That's whose name everyone is working under. You know, they've put the graft in, they've got to a certain level. They are overseeing all the projects that they're working on currently. The associate is also doing that. They are also overseeing all the projects, but it's not their name that they're doing it under. So the associate is a really, really strong person. It's kind of the casting director's number two almost. And then the associate will be facilitating the assistants who, you know, sometimes the assistants are working across several projects as well. Sometimes the assistants will work on one project and another assistant will be working on a different project, you know, that sort of thing. But ultimately, you know, the assistants are responsible for doing things like availability checking actors and watching the tapes, editing the tapes together if that's needed, uploading tapes, that sort of thing. You know, associate might be responsible for raising offers to sort of the bigger actors and facilitating the offer process, while also, you know, looking at tapes and stuff like that. And then the casting director just does all of that. Like, they watch the tapes that the assistants and the associates believe are the best, and, you know, decide who to put forward for it. It really is a team. So I feel like it's not really worth sort of splitting them up, because it is a team process. But yeah, ultimately you've got the casting director at the top, the associates the number two, and the assistants just do all the dirty work.
And it's almost chronological a bit in a way, I guess, you know, after the initial people have been found anyway, which I presume mostly comes from the associate and director, unless the assistant has someone that they've got in mind that they might be like, oh, I know a person. It's almost like they do all the emailing and all that stuff, and then it goes up the ladder, seemingly. That, or if I might have misunderstood.
Exactly. And it, you know, it just it changes per project. You know, sometimes the associate will be working on 4 projects, and then there's one project that needs their attention more than the others, so the assistant will take over. It's really is a team sport.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess when you've got loads of projects coming in at the same time, you really need a big team to be able to cope with all that.
You
So, what makes a good casting director?
do. Yeah, a few things. uh,
Long list.
I'd say attention to detail. Um, I worked with Rose Wicksteed. I've worked with a few casting directors, but Rose Wicksteed, I'd say, out of all of the ones I've worked with, has the most amazing attention to detail I've ever seen. She is meticulous. She's really, really brilliant. And, you know, what that means is, you know, making sure we have lists of actors that, you know, are available and the ones that aren't available, so that, you know, the producing and the directors can see that we've tried certain people, but, you know, making sure they're all in alphabetical order and stuff like that. It really comes down to like attention to detail for things like that. I'd also say, like, being a people person. um,
Yeah.
you've got to love spending time with actors. I think I've you know, I really do think you shouldn't be in the casting industry if you don't like actors, because
Yeah.
you spend most of your day with them, or at least talking about them or working with them in some way. Um, and also, you know, someone who can see it from an actor's point of view, um, someone who knows what it's like maybe to be in that room and to be that nervous and to have that pressure. I feel makes you a better casting director. Not all casting directors used to be actors, but a lot of them did. So I think it makes it really good. Willingness to work long hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with the States, because, you know, they don't get up till 5:30 p.m. UK time, so often you're working till 10, 11 at night. Yeah, challenging the director on, you know, I spoke a little bit about that earlier, challenging the director on their vision. Like, okay, you want it that way, why? And there's other ways that we could do this. Yeah, and then, yeah, as I said before, ability to work in a team. A lot of it is teamwork.
Yeah, it's quite amazing with casting sometimes, as you know, not just an actor but a consumer of theatre and TV and film. A lot of the time you go, oh, when you watch the finished product, you go, oh, that was amazing casting. And it amazes me when you think about where that came from, where the casting director first thought that actor would be good for that role. Like my brain can't quite get what that must be, what that talent is, what that ability is. But it really does astound me when you see certain actors that look almost born to play the roles that you see them do.
That is my favorite part of the process, I have to say. Like, if you get a role in and you go, oh, I know someone that would be brilliant for this.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you make a list of some of the best actors in the business, and, you know, it's your job to then ring agents and go, oh, is so-and-so free? Like, that blows my mind that I get to do that, you know. I love that part of the process, like putting together lists of people that I think might be good. Whether those are the big names or whether those are just actors that are on my list of people to watch, or people to cast again, that sort of thing. That's my favorite part, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine it's really, really rewarding seeing an actor that you've got in the room over and over again really start to take off and grow in the industry.
Yeah, my favorite story is I came across this wonderful young lad, hasn't trained, didn't need to train, just pure raw talent, just amazing ability. And I cast him in a short film that I was working on. And then the following year, I had a feature film that I was working on. And I went back to the agent and I went, "Oh, is he free for this?" And they went, "No, he's shooting, 12 weeks on a Netflix show." And I'm like, yes, because I'm so pleased for that young man who, has not had any sort of formal training and that I picked up quite early on for a rubbish little short film. It wasn't rubbish, it was wonderful, but but a short film, and then now they're on a Netflix show. Like, I love that. I love to see it.
That's not just like a good thing, as you're nice to actors, it's good to see people do well, but it's also like affirmation of your own ability as a casting director, isn't it? It's a bit where you go, yeah, I was right.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, exactly. What is the biggest misconception that people have about casting directors? Because I know there are many where people go, "Oh, casting directors do this, they do that."
It's definitely that we have any kind of final say, which I've talked about already a little bit. But yeah, we really don't. As long as director feels that they have it somewhere, and then they need to go away and think about who to offer it to, and then they come back and go, "Okay, we're going to go with this person," then I know I've done my job. The flip side of that is that while we don't always have the final say on who gets the job, we do certainly have a chance to go, "Do you know what, I think this person would be really good for it." It's about communication, and a good director will say to the casting director, "What do you think?" Especially if they're struggling to make a decision. And then if we like actors that we've seen from various, whether it's tape or in the room auditions or anything, if we like them, if we know they're good, they go on a list. Normally it's a mental list in our heads, but they go on some kind of list, and we'll bring them back again and again and again, because we know they're good. We believe in them. It may take 15 chances to land it, but eventually they'll land it. And it's
casting directors lists are very much that mythical object that actors either really want to be on or really don't want to be on. It's like the Father Christmas good or naughty list, isn't it?
Definitely, I have a good and a naughty list for
Oh
sure.
no! Oh no! Well, I'm gonna leave then because I'm done.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Come on, here we go. Do you think that casting directors, though, do you think that you're underappreciated in the industry?
I think we have been for a long time. I think it's changing. I think we're seeing a shift. We now have a BAFTA and we have an Emmy.
Yeah, that was a big fight to get that, wasn't it?
Huge fight. And, we won. So that's great. So yeah, 2020 was the first BAFTA for TV and BAFTA for film, which is very exciting.
Brilliant.
We don't have an Oscar yet. They're a bit behind the times, but we know that.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard, like, to be forgotten about in other scenarios. So, for example, I've been in a situation where I was running some auditions for another casting director I was assisting on, and someone came into the waiting room and was talking about a film premiere that they were going to that night, a short film premiere, and I cast that film, and I didn't get an invite.
No.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, sometimes you have to go, okay, that's a bit annoying, but you have to realize that sometimes it's hard for the director to just remember everything. Like, I know it sounds,
Well,
harsh.
yeah, you might not forget who made you the tea at 7 a.m. on the first day, but you should remember who cast your film.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm putting myself down here. But you have to remember that casting happens so early on in the process. So like, let's take a film for example. You have the writing process, then you get the director attached if they haven't written it. If it's a director that's written it themselves, then we know what's happening there. Then you go through the writing stage, you workshop the writing in some way, then you get the casting director on board to get the actors. You get the actors, you do the rehearsals, you do the shoot, you do the edit, you do the post, you do the sound. Like there's so much that happens after casting. So that's how I sort of make it justifiable in my head, because I'm like, it happens so early on. But you are right, it shouldn't happen at all. But there has been times where I've gone to the premiere and I've sat there and then I've watched the credits roll and I'm not there. But then that's just a very easy communication with the director, like, hi, congrats on the film, by the way, I was involved in this.
Yeah.
I was there.
And if you've had a good communication and a good relationship with your director throughout the whole thing, then it shouldn't be too hard a conversation to have.
Sydney, even before COVID, it was starting to really pick up. It was more self-tapes more than being in the room.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to be 99% of self-tapes for first round auditions from now on, moving forward?
I don't know whether it's gonna stay this way forever. I know that it's certainly probably about 99% now, definitely. It has also been moving that way for some time. There's been more and more tapes happening first round and then getting people in the room later, just because it saves money.
Yeah.
The casting studios in London cost £130 an hour. So, if you can save that and do a load of tapes and then spend less money per hour to just see a few people that you've kind of whittled down from the tapes, then it makes it easier for production. So it has been moving that way for some time. I personally love it. I love the self-taping process because I think it offers more opportunities to actors. Like if I was doing a 4-hour casting session, for example, and I was doing 10-minute slots with the occasional sort of quarter past and quarter twos in an hour, that's 32 slots. And let's say I'm seeing 2 roles in that, then that's 16 slots, 16 people per role. Whereas now I can see 32 people taped first for a role, or 50 people, or 100 people if I wanted to. I don't think I've ever gone that high, but
yeah.
But now I can see more people. It's giving more opportunity to actors. And you know what? The actors are getting so good at the taping. Like they're doing really, really well with it.
Having to adapt.
That's it. Having to adapt and doing whatever they can to get this job, which is so admirable. I don't know whether it'll stay 99% when we're out of this nightmare, but it certainly feels that way at the moment.
Yeah. Well, with what are your sort of personal do's and don'ts with self-tapes? Going back to what you said about actors getting so good at it now, I'm sure you see some that are letting themselves down.
Yeah, I've got lots of do's and lots of don'ts. And normally, they cross over. Do this, don't do that. Let's start with the do's, shall we? Let's be positive.
Start happy.
Go for it.
Start happy, get progressively sad. Yeah, so like
I just thought you were summing up my professional career then. Do you know what I
mean? Stop. It could all change. It can change on a dime.
Go for it, Sydney. Go for it.
Okay, so let's start with the do's. So I would say always label your self-tape with your name. I just can't tell you how many tapes I receive that say image.7930. And normally the way I work is say I've got a deadline of, Tuesday morning for these tapes. Normally by the time I've opened my emails, I've got 20 tapes waiting in my inbox. So what I do is I just download them all. Let the agents or actors know that I've received it. That's quite important. Download them all and then watch a load and then upload them. That's how I tend to work. Lots of other people will work differently. But if you were the first tape downloaded and it's image.7034 or whatever, I don't remember who that was. I don't remember who sent me that. I don't remember who you are. So it's just easier to just remove that doubt and me having to waste time going back into emails to find out who image.79 blah is, by putting your name in your tape, just labeling it with your name. Just makes it so much easier. Sort the eye line out before you do any sort of taping. So I find what works for me is kind of just off camera, so you're not staring down the lens and staring me out. It's quite intimidating at times. unless they've stated that they want it that way, then that's fine. But I find sort of just off camera works really well. Because
is that the same with you? Not to interrupt you, Sydney, is that the same with you when you do face-to-face castings as well? Because I know a lot of actors do go, should I look at the people on the casting? I've always been told don't, because they're trying to make notes and things. But I guess, as you say, sometimes it could vary. I don't know.
I always think if you're in the room, it's polite to ask and just sort of say, do you mind if I do it to you, or shall I do it to the wall? And then they can make the decision for you.
Great, yeah.
That takes the pressure off. But obviously with tapes, you don't really have that luxury. So I find I find with taping, what I want to see is what it would look like if I was filming you for the short or for the film, or whatever, for the commercial, whatever it is I'm casting. And it's rare that we'd film a film where they're looking straight down the camera. So to put it just off camera works quite well. But that's just me personally. And that is something I will say, if you have another casting director recording for this, they're going to probably say something entirely different. So take from this what you want to take from this, and don't take my word as gospel, please.
Of course.
Another within reason, please try to learn the lines. I know there are times, and I'm sure we'll come on to it later, where you've been given 24 hours to learn 10 pages of script, and I don't think that's acceptable. I think that's really bad practice from casting side of things. But if you've been given 3 days to learn 3 pages of script, then I would expect those lines to be learned. And even if it is a situation where you've not had time, because I completely understand that actors, need to survive and need to live and need to have jobs in order to do that. Like, I completely get that, understand that. There's ways to stick the script just off camera so that you can kind of be looking at it and it doesn't look too obvious on the camera. So I'd say try to learn the lines as best you can within reason, obviously. Another one, which is really sort of kind of obvious but not obvious, is put your phone on airplane mode if you're recording on your phone.
Yeah.
Because even if you have it on silent, if a text comes in, it sometimes glitches the picture. And it's only very small, but it's obvious. So if you just put it on airplane mode, it just removes that entirely. Always watch it back as well, just to make sure that the sound is working. Do sound tests. The amount of times I've had tapes come through from agents, and there's a computer, I've got it on mute, and I'm like, nope, there's genuinely no sound. And that says to me, okay, so that means that the actor hasn't watched it back, and also the agent hasn't watched it either, because they wouldn't have sent it. So it just says, okay, so are you just not bothered about my project?
Yeah.
That's kind of all goes through my head. Okay, you've not bothered to watch it back. You've just done it. You've got it done and you've sent it on, and your agent doesn't even want to listen to it, and doesn't even want to watch it even, and you've sent it to me without checking. Okay, you don't care. So yeah, I'd say, and it just because then I go back to the agent. I said, "There's no sound on this, guys," and they go, "Oh, we'll have to get them to re-record it." It's just wasting your time, It's not wasting my time necessarily, it's wasting your time. So yeah, always do sound tests and watch it back to make sure everything's sort of syncing up nicely. And then sort of the last really obvious one is to always send it on time / early. Like if I get it 2 hours before the deadline, that's great. Or if I get it the day before the deadline, that's even better. That's fine. If I get it the day after the deadline, sorry guys, I've already sent it off. Like you're out. You lost it. You lost the shot.
Do you think that actually plays a part at all in terms of, obviously if you're late, then probably you have ruined it. But is sometimes the earlier the better actually have a genuine difference in, maybe being able to get the part over someone that sends it close to the deadline? Because sometimes, you always get your agent going, I need this as soon as possible. And can that make a difference? Is it just like, oh, well, that's tape we sent off to the director first and they watched it and they've already selected that person?
I don't think that happens, because the way I tend to work, and again, this is just me, the way I tend to work is I set a deadline. I want all the tapes in by Monday, let's say. That means I want to send to the director, be happy with my list of who I'm sending by Tuesday afternoon. So if you get it to me Tuesday morning, you might make it on there, but you get it to me Tuesday afternoon, it's already been sent. Like, not a chance. But what I'll do is, if they came in on, Saturday or Friday, for example, if they got in really early, that's great, because I'll watch them and they'll either make it onto the list that I'm sending to the director or not. But they're all getting sent off at the same time to the director or the producer. Yeah. So they won't know that you got it in 2 days early. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always good for me. It's great for me, and I appreciate it if you've managed to do it early. I'd say never rush it. If you've got until Monday, take that time by all means. I don't expect you to rush it for me. But yeah, like, if you get it in late, you might make it onto the list if I think it's good enough. That's another misconception probably, is that, there's an assumption that all tapes get submitted, and that's just,
I was about to say that.
It's just not the case. I will send. So let's say I ask for 50 tapes for a role for a film. If you're good enough, you'll make it on there. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not that I'm culling to make it down to 25 or anything like that. Like, if I send 35, great. If I send 25, great. It's still quite a lot of choice. But if you're not good enough, if you're not up to the standard, or if you've got the script in shot, or if you've clearly not made an effort, or if you've got it to me late, odds are you're not making it on that list and you're not getting submitted, and the director will never see you. So that's a misconception as well, that every tape gets submitted to production. That's how I work. There's other casting directors who will just give as much choice as possible, and but also, I don't want to embarrass myself. I want the director to see the best of the best. So if I put on someone that's waving their script around because they haven't bothered to learn it, that doesn't make me look good. So I'm going to take you off.
Yeah, it goes back to that phrase that we hear, which is, don't be nervous when you go into the audition. They want you to be good.
That's it. We want you to be good. We want you to be so good. We want you to get the job.
Yeah.
Because it makes us look good.
Exactly. Everyone wins.
Everyone wins. That's it. So, like, moving on to the don'ts of the tapes, I would say don't film in portrait on your phone. Always film in landscape. And the reason for that is because if you film in portrait, you take up a third of my screen. If you film in landscape, you take up the whole screen. So it's just much easier to see you and see what you're doing if you film in landscape. Try not to cover your face with your hair or your hands too much, because ultimately I want to see your face. I want to see your eyes. I want to see what you're doing with your face. And if you've got, a really long fringe or something that's covering your eyes, and that's not helpful to any of us. I've said it before, don't have your script in shot. It's embarrassing and it's disrespectful. Also, you don't need expensive lights. Like, I know there's some people that have, these like studio quality lights, and whilst that's great, you can literally do it with natural light, with the sunlight, and with these really quite cheap sort of ring lights that people are using these days, which are fantastic. It lights your whole face. And I think there's, I'm never going to be someone to sit here and say you need to spend loads of money in order to get the job. It's not the truth. It's not the case. But I know there are certain ring lights on Amazon that are sort of 15 quid or something. So it might be worth getting one and just having a play around. You also don't need to say thank you at the end. Like, you don't need to. You don't need to thank me.
That's I've never heard of that one before.
I haven't. No.
Yeah,
really?
Like, and it's very polite. It's like, thank you very much or something like that. But you don't need to thank me. You got this opportunity yourself.
Yeah, that strikes me as a little bit needy.
A little bit, and also just unnecessary. Like, you don't need to thank anyone. You got this yourself. You did this because you were right for the part in some way. You don't need to thank anyone for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, above all else, don't overtape. I always say to people, look, do 3 takes of a scene. You know, if you've got several scenes to do 3 takes of each scene. Like, the first take is probably not going to be the greatest because you're figuring it out, you're speaking it out loud for the first time, maybe. So the second and the third take are always going to be better, in my opinion. But if you start over taping, if you start doing 15 takes, 20 takes per scene, you'll start to lose detail. You'll start to get frustrated with yourself. You'll lose the lines. Like, so many things can happen if you overtape. I always say, do 3 takes, pick the best one and send it. So yeah, that's some of my thoughts on taping.
Lovely. Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier that you know, don't take my word as gospel. If you got someone else on, they would possibly give different answers. You hear that at workshops as well when you work with casting directors. They say, "Okay, I'll answer this question, but another casting director could say differently." In the experience that you've had across multiple offices in your career so far before you turned freelance, are there any major differences you can remember about how certain casting directors operated?
The main ones, it depends on the different fields. Like, you've got stage, you've got TV, film, commercials, you've got street casting, which is fascinating. Where people just sort of go out on the street and say, you know, let's say they're casting sort of a Dunelm advert, so they'll go to Dunelm and just speak to people and be like, hey, do you want to be an advert for $2,000? Like, it's mad.
Wow.
Street casting is madness. It's amazing. It was such an experience to work on some of that. But yeah, it's crazy. I'd say one of the differences between them all is an ident. So an ident is where you kind of say, hi, my name is Sydney Aldridge, I'm represented by blah blah talent, and here are my profiles and here are my hands. I would say sort of casting directors tend to want that, or they don't. And if they want it, they'll ask for it. And if they don't, they won't. So it's quite easy to grasp who wants an ident and who doesn't. I tend to see that commercials, they always want an ident because they need to ask things like, have you been in any conflicting commercials? Because, you know, if I'm casting a Range Rover commercial and someone's been in a Ford commercial the year before, then you're not getting the job. It's conflicting brand, you know, so it doesn't work. So yeah, commercials tend to ask for idents, but things like TV and film, they kind of just want to see the character in front of them. Like, it's not so much about, hi, here's a bit about me, here's who I am, here are my hands. It's like they want to see that character, so just go straight into the script. But then, like you say, another casting director will say different. So they'll say something like an ident is an opportunity for an actor to like show a bit of who they are, show a bit of personality, and that's great too, because we do want to see who you are, we do want to know who you are. And yeah, fundamentally we all just want the same thing, which is for you to do well and for you to land the job. So yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I tend to, on my self-tapes, I tend to quite often put the idents at the end, because I know you just said about putting it first and then going straight into the character.
That's a really good idea. Really good idea, because, you know, then they've seen what they need to see, and if they need to see the ident, need to see any more, they have it. But if not, then they can just, you know, come away from it. It's fine. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Do it at the end.
When and why did you turn freelance, Sydney?
Yeah, it just got to a point. That gets to a point where you work with so many people, you pick up so much, you learn so much. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm still assisting various people. I'm working with Kate and Lou tomorrow because they need an extra pair of hands, and I also work with Sasha Robertson. So, you know, when she has stuff on, I'll work with her as well. I started working in casting when I was, how old was I? 23 in 2015. And, you know, every casting company has highs and lows. There's periods of the year where it's super, super busy, and then there's periods like now, sort of coming up to Christmas, where it dips a little bit. And so you need to shop around, and you need to go and work for other people, and you need to learn from other people and learn different disciplines and stuff like that. But I set up my own company in 2018, and I've just juggled. There's times where, you know, I'll get up in the morning and I'll go to work, and then I'll spend all day at work. I'll come home from work, and then I'll start work again on my own stuff, because, you know, I feel like it's unprofessional to do your own stuff when you're working for someone else. It's not fair. So then you get home at, you know, 7 o'clock, and you need to start work again and go till 10 or 11 at night. And that's just the way it needs to be sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. If you love it, it's easy to do. Well, not easy to do that, but you don't mind doing it as much, do you?
Exactly.
Actors, I always get told that it's sort of a rumor going around that casting directors watch the first 30 seconds of a show reel or just a minute of a self-tape. Is that the case?
Oh, I mean, it depends on the project. So if I'm doing a commercial, for example, and I'm seeing, you know, as much choice as I can. Let's say we're in COVID times and we're doing tapes first round. You know, normally commercials we see people in the room first round. That's how we do it. That's how I do it anyway. But you know, COVID times we're doing tapes. So let's say I'm seeing 50 people for a role, and let's say there's 3 roles. That's 150 tapes that I need to download and then re-upload to my software and label them and stuff like that, make sure they're in the right file. So with something like that, I will check that the sound is working on the tape. I will check the ident, and I will watch the first sort of 30 seconds of the action to make sure that it's the right action, number one, but also kind of along the lines of what we're looking for. And then I'll go, yeah, good, up they go, uploaded. Just because with commercials we don't have the time. Sometimes we can turn around a commercial in 3 days, and we don't have the time to watch 150 tapes. But I will check that the sound's working, the ident is there, that the bare bones of what we're looking for is there, and then it's down to production and director to make some choices on that. With film and TV, I watch every tape, no question, from start to finish. And then I pick my favorites to get submitted. So yeah, that's fine. I think where this is more relevant is show reels.
Yeah.
Depends whether I'm enjoying it. If I'm enjoying the show reel, if I'm enjoying watching you work, then I'll watch the whole thing. But ultimately, I just want to see that you can act on screen, and I can tell that within the first minute and a half. So I tend to watch the first minute and a half at a minimum. If I'm enjoying it, I'll watch the whole thing. If not, then I'll move on. So yeah, there is, and it's just a time thing. It's no disrespect meant towards actors. It's a time thing. And you know, definitely put the first minute and a half of your show reel, put the best stuff there, best stuff in the first minute for sure.
Yeah, with the order of your show reel, I always hear that you should maybe put the closest casting to you as you sort of thing, as opposed to like a character.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I've just heard that it's because they just want to see you on the screen, and then you sort of get the choice to play various characters when you become bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I've not heard that one before, and I see the logic there. I guess from the flip side, you're never going to know what they're looking for. So if the closest to you is quite dramatic and quite serious because that's what you like to play, but I'm looking for comedy, then you're not going to show me what I need to see in those first few seconds. But, you know, maybe I'll watch a bit longer and find the comedy later on, that sort of thing. So I guess that's an interesting thought, because you're never going to know what the reason why someone is watching your show reel. But it is a good thought. I've not thought about that before. I would always just say put your highest profile stuff first. You know, if you've got a little scene in The Crown, brilliant, put it first. If you don't, that's fine. Of course, that's fine. But put the stuff that you're proudest of first. The stuff that you feel like, yeah, do you know what? I really nailed that. Put that first.
Yeah.
You knew this. You knew this question was coming in terms of learning lines, as you mentioned before. Was why does it happen then that actors can get sent, you know, pages and pages of dialogue with a screen audition with maybe a day's notice, maybe a couple if you're lucky? Like, is it because projects happen really quick, and as you say, you've only got so much time in a day, you need to get things done? Because I don't want to ask this question like a whinge, because it sounds like oh god, but as actors, you want to put your best performance forward, and maybe if you're not the fastest at learning lines, then I do believe that you genuinely sacrifice the level of your performance sometimes for the sake of just knowing the words. And I'm just looking for that sort of justification of, oh yeah, but it has to happen because of this, because then you go, okay, I'll get on with it. Does that make sense? I probably butchered the phrasing of the question there.
No, you haven't. I completely get what you're saying. I always find it really unfair when I hear these stories of 5 pages of script with like thick, heavy dialogue within 24 hours. I feel like it's really unfair. I feel it's really bad practice from a casting side of things, because I mean, I'm working on a short film at the moment. It's filming on Sunday. It's now Monday for anyone who's listening to this a little further down the line. I don't have time to give people 5 days, but what I did do is I sent it out on Friday, the Friday just gone, and I gave them the weekend, and I want it in by Tuesday. So I've given them 4 days, and for 3 pages of script. So I feel that that's quite nice, and that's quite that's quite a lot of notice. But when I do hear about these horror stories of 10 pages of script with 24 hours notice, I do shudder a little bit. I feel it's really unfair. I feel like any character, especially in film, TV sort of setting, that has 10 pages of script deserves to be taken more time on.
Yeah. And it can be especially frustrating if it's like, this is the first round for the TV and film one. And as you say, like, you watch all the TV and film tapes, but we know not everyone does. And we know that on the first round, they have to cut or try and maybe cut this amount of tapes. And it's like, so I have to learn 6 pages of dialogue in one night for the first round of a TV and film audition that I've got a one in the middle. I know that's the industry, and I know you've got to just, keep your head above water and stay positive and be happy to get seen by things. But as you say, it can be. It's sometimes American projects in particular, I think, seemingly, at least from my experience, are the ones that send through pages and like a book of stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you know what? The Americans will get it done.
Yeah.
And the shark casting director inside me is going, there is always going to be someone that did spend, loads of hours
There's
on it.
always someone that's going to work harder. Exactly.
That's it. So you've got to make sure you're there with them, that you're up there with them.
Or be that person.
Or be that person. If it gets down to the last 2 and one of them knew the lines and one of them didn't, like, which one are they going to go for? It's not a question. And that's the shark inside me saying that. But the softer side of me is going, but I get it. I get that we are in, I mean, if we're taking 2020 as an example, we are in a global pandemic. We are in a situation where actors have lost their entire industry, and they are having to do jobs that they have never done before in order to survive and in order to pay the rent. And you can't expect them to learn 10 pages of script within 24 hours notice if they've been up all night delivering Tesco deliveries. Do you know what I mean? It, like, I completely get it. I completely get that there needs to be a balance there. But then the shark inside me is going, but someone will have stayed up all night.
Totally.
And someone will have learnt those lines. I don't really have an answer for you. All I can say from my point of view is that I don't feel that a character that has 5 pages of script does not have the time from casting side of things to be spent on it. It shouldn't be a 24-hour turnaround. They should be looking for that character for a couple of weeks. They should be getting tapes in for, spend a few days on that. Oh, we didn't find it this time. Okay, let's go again. It shouldn't be a 24-hour turnaround. It's ridiculous. It's just not fair. Yeah. And I myself always try and give a few days for a few pages of script. If it's 5 pages, I'd normally try and give 4 days, for example.
That'd be more than enough.
If it's more,
that's reasonable.
Yeah, if it's 10 pages, I'd try and give a week. So that's the way I work. I know certain deadlines don't always adhere to that way of working, but I try and work that way.
Yeah. Sydney, going back to something you said about street casting a minute ago, something sort of similar. I remember someone saying to me, I they were talking about me going on Love Island at one point, and they're
Ooh.
like, "Yeah, it'll help you get in the room. You get all the social media followers and stuff like that." Do you think the amount of social media followers is helping certain people get in the room? Because I'm quite often in the room with people that aren't actors that have never done it, and that's
Christian
no
is
bad
debating
thing.
whether or not to go down the Love Island avenue. I am yet to be asked, but you know.
Oh, well, so am I. So am I.
But do you think it's an increasing factor in casting these days? Do you look up people's social media profiles and they've got 50,000 followers and that puts more bums on seats, for example?
Me personally, I've never come across it yet. I have not come across it yet. So I've never been in a situation where it's got down to two people and they've gone, okay, but this one has 10,000 followers and this one has two. That's never happened to me yet. I do feel it's more prevalent in like models and modeling campaigns, because if you have a model that has 24,000 followers on Instagram that's going to, you know, put this campaign out there, it's going to reach further. So as much as I hate to say it, in terms of that, I can see the benefit, but I don't work that way. I would never start going, okay, we've got two actors here, they're brilliant. Let's have a look at how many Twitter followers they have or how many Instagram followers they have. It just wouldn't cross my mind. It's madness to me. But maybe that's because I work in more TV and film and commercials as opposed to sort of modeling campaigns and things like that. I do think it's a shame, and I don't agree with it. I don't think it should be a factor in anyone's decision making. But the other flip side of it is it's completely out of your control. So there's not much point worrying about it because
Yeah.
you're not in control over your followers, you know, count or anything like that. I know some people like buy followers and stuff like that, but that's crazy to me. So
Yeah, you buy
also
followers and get 2 likes.
that's it. Also, like you're never going to be told from a casting side of things that that was the reason you didn't get a job. I'd never be like, here's why. So it's out of your control. So there's no point in stressing and worrying about it. Got enough to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, on a similar note, in terms of, it's not really like social media followers, but how important is it to have what could be described as a big agent in terms of getting noticed by the bigger casting directors, you know, the Sasha Robertsons of this world? And if you don't have a bigger agent, then how can you do work yourself or working with the agent that you do have to get on those bigger casting offices lists that you mentioned?
Yeah, so we do have lists. I don't know a single casting director that doesn't have a list of, you know, maybe they have a film list and maybe they have a TV list and a stage list and a commercials list, that sort of thing, if they sort of cover all of those disciplines. And if it's a big sort of TV film project, odds are they're going to send it to the appropriate lists and the relevant lists that they want to send it to, which will include the big agents, I'm sorry to say. But it doesn't always just include the big agents. It includes the agents that have taken the time to write to you and go, hi, Sydney, I've got a plethora of talent on my books that I think you should see for stuff. Also, do you want to go to the theatre next week and get a drink? And obviously we have no theatre at the moment, but you know, I also have agents on my list that I just like to spend time with and that I like to see their clients doing well. And maybe I like, you know, maybe I've seen a few of their clients for stuff and they always impress me. Like maybe they don't always land the job because maybe someone from one of the top 5 agents will land the job that time, but the clients have impressed me, so therefore the agent goes on my list. And unfortunately that's up to the agent to make that introduction and to make that effort to reach out. You certainly can reach out as an actor, by all means. I love getting emails sent to me about, you know, what people are up to and why they feel that, you know, they should be seen for a project. I call them personals because it feels personal to me.
Do you think that is important as well when actors email casting directors to be very much, because that is a whole thing of, you know, what do you put in an email when you email a casting director? Do you have to have a very specific reason? Can it be a bit more general? Because especially when you're not getting work, sometimes it's hard to find a good reason for a casting director to see you. I know that sounds quite self-effacing, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And I think my response to it would be, I call them personals because they should be personal. Make it personal. Know what it is that I'm doing, what I'm up to. You know, I have a website. Go on my website and be like, "Hi, Sydney. I heard you're working with this director, and you know, I think their short film, blah blah, was brilliant at the Brighton Fringe." You know, say stuff like that, and say, you know, I really appreciate that you are committed to the Yes or No campaign. That's brilliant. I'm an actor. Here's what I'm up to. You know, make it, show that you've done some sort of research into who I am and what I do, and then it will make me want to read on and go, oh, do you know what? They've taken the time. I'm going to take the time. And I take the time by clicking that spotlight link or Mandy profile or whatever it is you're on, and having a look at your show reel and looking who their agent is, and oh, that agent isn't on my list, maybe I'll add them. You know, that's how it works. And I'd say there's no like drama or shame at all in doing that, in reaching out and going, hey, this is who I am. Obviously I don't want a daily email and I don't want a weekly email almost, but if you have a if you have a reason to email me, which is, hi Sydney, I've just updated my show reel, would love it if you could have a watch, that's a reason to email me. Or if it's, I'm in a show and it would be great if you could come along, we could get a drink after, that's a reason to email me as well. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay.
But there are some projects I work on that go out to all agents or all actors because it's quite niche. So, for example, I'm working on a short film at the moment that needs Welsh actors. So I don't know a huge amount of Welsh actors off the top of my head, so I've sent it out to everyone because I need more ideas. So it doesn't always just go to the relevant lists. Sometimes it goes out to everyone as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, what's the most common note you give actors in the room? Sure, there's many.
There is a few. I've got a few. Be on time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, stuff happens. If you're running late, of course it's fine, but make us aware of it. You know, just, and we will accommodate you. This, you know, this goes for self tapes. It goes for in-person auditions. If you need more time, it's fine. Just make us aware of it. But lateness with not being made aware is just not acceptable. I just find it rude. Learn the lines, obviously within reason, as we've discussed before now. It just shows that you want the job. It shows you've made the effort. It shows that you care. Do your research as well. Like, you know, look up that director. Look up the theatre company that you're auditioning for. What have they done in the past? What's this character you're going for? Is it a play that you know? Is it a Shakespeare? Read the play, maybe. Try and see who else played that role. Yeah, do your research. And then a note that I say quite a lot to especially British actors is to take control of the room. There's, you know, the Americans are so good at that. They will go, you know, if someone from the casting department goes, okay, great, I think we've got everything we need, and they don't feel like they've done their best, they will go, actually, I just love another go at it. Can I just do one more take? And nine times out of 10 we'll go, yeah, sure, go for it. Because
it's that British politeness, isn't it? It just makes you go, oh, I cannot ask for anything, even if it's reasonable.
that's why I said it's a British thing.
Yeah.
Because it really is that British politeness. If we are saying, okay, great, we've got everything we need, and you don't feel like you've done your best, or that you feel you could do it one more time and really nail it, take control of that room and just, this is your audition. This is your chance to get the job. Take control of it and just go, actually, if we've got time, I'd love to just try it one more time. You don't need to be rude about it. Just ask. And the worst that could happen is they go, I'm really sorry, running a bit behind, but, you know, next time. Take control of the room. And then the last the last note that I give quite a lot is just don't be weird.
You've got to have some examples here.
Oh, yes. I've got so many, but I'm scared that people will listen to this and know it's them.
They'll know they're the ones that brought the gerbil into the audition, or they're the ones that, yeah.
Just don't be weird. Like, one example I can think of off the top of my head is a very, very simple scene I was asking for tapes for, which was a interview for in a restaurant to be a waiter or waitress. And I got a tape in and someone completely butchered the lines. They clearly hadn't learnt them. They were just paraphrasing and improvising their own script, which is also really offensive, by the way, to the director and writer if they're watching. And if the director is the writer, even more offensive. They just go, "What's wrong with my lines that I wrote?"
Yeah.
So that's that. Don't be weird. But also, like, throughout the tape, they were eating a banana for no reason. And it's not in the script, and it was just an interesting choice that they felt they were making, but it's weird. Don't be weird.
No.
And that goes, that goes for in the room and also, in tapes and stuff like that. Like,
Leave the
please don't be
bananas in the
weird.
fruit bowl. Don't bring them in.
Enough with the bananas.
Enough with the bananas.
That's the catchphrase of this
That's
episode.
what we're putting on the post when we preview this one. Sydney Aldridge says, "Don't bring bananas."
Enough with the bananas,
Enough
guys.
with bananas, yeah.
Oh my
like
word.
that.
Do you have any tips for actors that really struggle with nerves or the pressure of, especially a face-to-face casting? You see people that are really confident actors and they're good at their work, and they go, "Well, I just get into the audition room sometimes and I don't know what happens. I just freeze."
Yeah, I really thought hard about this one, and I can't think of any sort of solid things to say about that. The one thing I would like to say is to try to remember that we're not scary individuals and we're not scary professionals. We just want you to come in and do well and show us what you've been working on, we're trying to find people for the job, and we want you to be that person, and hopefully that gives you some sort of comfort to just go in there and have a play and have a go. But genuine nerves, I would say, sort of, it's more of a mental and physical thing. So I would say sort of in through your nose for 7, out through your mouth for 11, breathing. I remember being really nervous before going on stage once, and that's what my director told me. In for 7, out for 11. And I'd say spend, a few minutes by yourself if you need to. Just go into a bathroom somewhere and sit and just do that for a little bit, and you will automatically just feel calmer. I found that really worked for me. But ultimately, it's just knowing that we want you to do well, and that we're not going to shout at you if you forget the lines. We're just not those kind of people. We're just be yourself and do your job and do your best.
Yeah, get the Headspace app on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good one, that is. What do you think actors should all be doing right now when they're not in work? Is it just the practicing the accents, doing the vocal warm-ups in the mornings, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say for this one is we are in the scariest, most uncertain year of our lives, and also of our industry. And whatever you need to be doing, that's okay. Whether that's, going on to doing a load of Zoom rehearsal readings and stuff like that, or doing Zoom performances, or writing, or reading scripts and re-recording some some scenes for your showreel, for example, on your bed, just sat there doing it and practicing and watching yourself back and getting used to criticizing yourself, whether it's that or whether it's literally just spending time with your family and not caring about this industry that has disappeared from us. That's okay. Whatever you need to do to get through this and keep your mental health in check is okay. No one is going to sit there and judge you because you didn't do a Zoom read through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever you need to be doing is fine. If you don't feel like you can get that tape in because you're not there mentally, you're not in a good state of mind, that's okay. No one is going to be upset with you for that. You need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, have to take care of yourself during these really difficult times.
Exactly.
If we could go and look at the Spotlight CV, sort of has 3 main sort of weapons as an actor to get seen. So you got your showreel, you got your headshots, and then you got your skills as well. But then your credits. Is there a definitive rank as what's the most important to the least important, or is it just like casting teams are a team effort and you need all of them to be pretty decent?
Again, I'm just going on my experience, and another casting director will tell you different. But here's my order of importance.
Indeed.
Headshots, showreel, credits.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is because, I put a Spotlight breakdown out, for example. Also, I'm using Spotlight as an example. There are lots of other, ways
Of course, yes.
to hear about a job. But let's just use Spotlight as an example. I've put a breakdown out. I'm looking for a role. If you think you're that role and you're self-represented and can represent and can submit yourself, or your agent has submitted you, they will do so. That's brilliant. All I see in front of me is, I think it's sort of 8 across and then 6 down of headshots. Just a big sort of portfolio of headshots. That's all I see, and like names, and I can see a little submission box. So if I'm looking for someone that like needs to play the oboe, then in that submission box, agents or actors can write grade 8 oboe, for example. So that's all I can see. So the headshot really is the first thing I see. And if you've got an interesting headshot or a headshot that hits the brief that I'm looking for, I will click on it and I will see your profile like fill my page. And then that's where I can see things like your showreel, your other shots that you might have on your profile, and your credits. So then my next point of call would be, okay, I'm casting for a feature film. It's a good role. I need to see if they can act on screen. So then I would go to the showreel. That's why it's second. It's the second point of call. You need the headshot in order to get me to the showreel, if that makes sense.
It's like chronologically what comes first, literally, for you, isn't it?
Literally. So while I'm watching the showreel, I will then scroll down and have a look at credits. That I've not heard anyone else say this, but I'm going to say it because I feel like it might be, something that maybe you guys haven't heard before.
Definitely.
I feel like there's a bit of an assumption with credit order on Spotlight. So you can order your credits. You can put stage, TV, film, short film, whatever. And I feel like there's a bit of an assumption that if people put stage first, oh, they're a stage actor. Or if they put TV film first, oh, they're a film actor. And I've definitely had those thoughts in the past, and I'm really trying hard to like move away from it because it's really unhelpful for everyone. Because ultimately, all I want to know is that you can act on screen, and that's why showreel comes above credits. And that tells me that. But there is a bit of an assumption that like, oh, they have more stage credits, less TV film, or no TV film, which is fine. It's not going to go against you in order to get seen for this feature film. Because as you already know, you will either get submitted or you won't. Do you know what I mean? So, but it is really a really unhelpful way of looking at it. But I feel like there is a bit of an assumption, and this is just me talking, that if stage comes first, that they're a stage actor. If TV film comes first, then they're a screen actor.
Well, it's almost like that word association, isn't it? When you attribute things to the language. So if you see stage first, your mind will of course go to stage, and then that means sometimes that you don't think of. It does make sense to me. I can see why that might be a thing, and I know actors sometimes get told, well, sometimes don't put the dates on your credits because then they can't see how long you may or may not have been work, or take your drama school shows off because everyone knows that you did a Shakespeare drama school, or there are lots of assumptions I know made around credits on a CV.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the date one I've heard quite a lot, like take the dates off. I find that really unhelpful personally. I'm never going to judge someone for having no work in 2016 for whatever reason. I'm never going to sit there in an audition room and go, hey, so what were you doing in 2016?
What went wrong?
Like, why would we take the time? And, the most common answer to that question is probably something along the lines of, oh, I had a family. I had a baby. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then who are we?
I'm going to use that one.
Do it. I pushed out a baby. And then who are we to sit there and go, oh, God's sake, they had a baby, not focusing on their career. Oh,
you weren't working at the fringe because you had a child. God.
Do you know what I mean? So I think the dates one, it doesn't matter if there was a gap. Like, who cares? Also, everyone's going to have gaps in 2020. No, none of us are going to be like, what were you doing in 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the response would just be, well, what were you doing in 2020? Nothing.
Going on. Sydney, when you say you want to see that someone can act on screen, what is it you look for in a showreel in terms of, is it you want to see heightened emotion, people really going for it, or is it more naturalistic things? And what is it you're specifically looking for to answer the question?
Yeah, so when I get a load of tapes in, I always make notes on each of them, and I find really interestingly that the word that I write down the most is subtlety.
Mm.
I find it's a really, really like very fine line to cross with subtlety. There's just a knack to it. And I'm not sitting here for 1 second saying that stage actors who are used to being, more heightened can't do screen. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think that there's a knack to screen, which is the subtlety. You can have reactions to what's happening in front of you in your script, and be able to respond to that in a really subtle, real way. If you hear bad news in real life, odds are you don't go, "Oh my god!" It doesn't happen. It's a really nuanced, subtle reaction that happens in real life, and that realness, that raw, subtle talent, is kind of what I look for a lot. So I'd much rather see, I'd much rather see someone do a monologue that they connect with, sat on their bed, which they filmed themselves, than a screaming match between two people that's been professionally shot. I'd much rather see that. I'd much rather see something that they connect with emotionally and just show me that subtlety. And also listening to your scene partner. And that doesn't mean just staring them down, because often we don't just look people in the eye when we're talking to them. We flit about, and we're pulling sort of hairs off of our jumper and things like that. Like, it's being real in a scene and listening and having that subtlety, and not just heightened emotion and crying on cue and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, Mark Rylance sprung to mind then when I heard him talking once, saying that it's sort of the ability to almost do nothing, but everything is going on internally, and if you're really listening, your eyes will show that. You don't need to present.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as long as you've done the homework, you know what it is they're saying, and you can listen to them truthfully and really in the moment. Yeah.
As you said earlier, you mentioned that on your website, which I love, you put it like front and center on a page on your website about being behind giving actors a definitive yes or no after an audition. And I know there's been a push in recent years for this with that specific yes no campaign. But there are still so many auditions out there where you don't hear a single word unless you've got a job. And I know that some actors want too much. They want, a 3-page breakdown of how their performance could have been better. But on the whole, I think actors just, even a group message that came out to say, thank you for auditioning. Unfortunately, it didn't go your way this time. It doesn't even need my name on it, to be honest. It's just to know, I think, sometimes. And do you think this will eventually change, with more campaigns like the yes, no one? Or do you think the foot's been taken off the pedal in regards to that?
I really hope it does change. I really hope more people do get on board with this. I feel like 2020 has kind of messed everyone up in ways, and maybe the foot has been taken a bit off the pedal. Not from my point of view. I will still sort of let everyone know I'm committed to it. I think it's a level of respect that actors deserve. I know some people that say that they'd rather not hear that, after 3 weeks, they just assume that it hasn't gone their way. And then to hear a no brings it all back again. And while I see that point of view, I don't necessarily agree. I just think it's a level of respect that needs to be shown between the two, casting and acting. Commercial world is a bit tricky. It's a bit different because we see so many people for commercials, especially during these times where we're doing tapes now. And in commercial world, you'll get a pencil, which basically means you're being considered. Please keep the dates free. And I tend to be like, if you don't hear about whether you've got a pencil, you need to just assume that the commercial hasn't gone your way. And I will always still do a group message on Spotlight saying, thank you so much. This project is now cast. We can release all the pencils, kind of thing. Like everyone should still be told that their pencil has been released because they're booking it off work, for example. They need to be told as soon as possible, and I will always be committed to that. But yeah, it's a bit of a hard year to judge whether the foot's been taken off the pedal because of this year that we've had. But I know that I'm committed to it, and that's all I care about, really.
Yeah, the infamous pencil. I don't know how many times I've had even a heavy pencil. How many people do you? Like, how many people typically get heavy penciled or pencil? Because I always find it so frustrating. You think a heavy pencil, you're like, oh, okay.
What does that even mean? A heavy, like, is it some giant HB pencil thing that they're like? Is it literal or?
I love to think that actors have light and heavy pencils ready for the appropriate. But it obviously depends project per project. Basically anyone that production have picked out ultimately will go on a pencil, and that could be 5 people per role, that could be 12 people per role. At times it's been 30 people per role or more, and there tends to be a situation where we get the pencil list, and then we'll get the heavy pencil list, which is the last sort of 2 to 3 people being considered for the role, and that's who will get heavy penciled. So all I would say is if you get a pencil, that's brilliant, because that means that you've done something right, which is you've shown them a character that they're looking for, or you've got the right look. 9 times out of 10 it's a look thing with commercials, unfortunately. But you've done something great there. So well done. Pat yourself on the back for getting a pencil. If you get a heavy pencil, it means, okay, I'm being seriously considered for this. Please don't mess this up for me. The amount of times people come back with after I've heavy penciled them and go, okay, they've been offered something else, so they've taken that. And I'm like, oh my God. It stresses me out beyond belief. But yeah, obviously, you need to take the work. I get that. Ultimately. But yeah, a pencil is a really good thing. And if you didn't get a pencil, that doesn't mean that you're a terrible actor. It just means the tiny little things that are out of your control. For example, you might have brown hair and they were looking for someone with red hair or blonde hair. And that's nothing in any way in your control. So yeah, it's just a case of going, okay, didn't get that one, on to the next.
Yeah, just move on.
But yeah, like with TV, film, stage, the yes/no thing needs to be, in everyone's minds. Yeah,
for sure. With everything going on this year, what sort of changes do you see being implemented in the casting process in the future?
I think what I would love to happen, as well as more people committing to the yes or no campaign, I would love for that to happen. What I would really like to happen is less of a need to secure big names or up and coming names to get your project off the ground. The amount of times directors come to me and they say, Sid, I've got this script. I think it's really good. I can't secure a producer or any kind of financing unless we get a name. That puts a tremendous amount of pressure on me, because it's basically saying, if you don't get me a name, this project can't get off the ground. I would love for there to be more finances who are, financing up and coming writers and directors in their early works. I would love that. I would love for there to be less of a need for a star in order to get a project off the ground. I also would love for there to be more inclusive stories being told, and I think and therefore more inclusive casting happening. And I think the only way to do that is to change it at the top. There needs to be more female writers. There needs to be more female or female identifying directors. There needs to be more people of color who are writing. There needs to be more people of color who are directing, because that is the only way we are starting to get inclusive stories being told. Like Small Axe, for example, like how good was that on BBC on BBC One? Like unbelievable. I May Destroy You, which was Michaela Cole's series. Oh
that
my
just
gosh.
blew up Twitter. That went
Oh,
huge.
it went huge everywhere. It's made it over to the States. It's just phenomenal, and mainly black cast. How brilliant, you know. Also, I think something that needs to change is the idea that a diverse cast or an inclusive cast just means, and this is in quote marks, this is not me quoting, but it just means one of each. You know, we have a South Asian person, okay, we have a black person, we have an East Asian person, okay, oh good, we're a diverse cast. It doesn't mean that. You know, diversity doesn't just mean ethnicity. It can mean gender, it can mean disability, it can mean culture. You know, I came into contact with an actor who came from a traveling background, and he said to me, there's just such a, like, it's so hard for me to get in the room because they just think I'm poor and I'm a traveler. And I'm like, that's incredible. Like, what an incredible thing that you can bring to a role, you know, your culture and where you've come from. Like, diversity is that as well. It's about culture. It's not just about the color of people's skin. So I would love for there to be more diversity in terms of that gender, disability and culture as well.
Yeah, and I think
Sorry,
being
rabbited on a bit there.
No, well, it's important because, you know, Christian and myself are both white, cisgendered, you know, younger, middle class RP speaking males, and you know, we're in the majority there. And I think sometimes for people like us, we see you don't see that there's a lack of diversity because you're almost not looking for it. You've got blinkers when you're in our position, which is, you know, something with our privilege should be working on. But then you see these great shows, as you say, come up, and it's like, I haven't seen a story like that. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, I'm as much a consumer of this stuff as I am an actor, and all I want to see is good stories. I just want to be, I don't need to see stuff that's always the same looking cast or always the same sort of story. I'd much rather something be fresh, be interesting, challenge my views on the world. And as you said about, you know, if an actor's a traveller from that type of community, that adds a legitimacy to their role that you won't see if someone's sort of putting on a mask.
That's it. And those are the projects that I want to work on as well. Those are the projects that excite me.
Totally. And speaking about projects that you're working on, want to work on, and did do this year, I'd love to just briefly touch on The Show Must Go Online, because that was such a 2020 project. So for those that haven't, well, actually, Sydney, can you do a sort of 10-second? This is what The Show Must Go Online, because you'll sum it up far better than I will.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know about The Show Must Go Online, it's a project that's been going on since March. I think they actually started it before lockdown was officially announced by Boris. It was shortly after the theatre industry just collapsed and everything closed. And basically, once a week, they've been performing a Shakespeare chronologically from when they were written. So they started off with, you know, some of the unknown ones like Henry VI Part 1, 2, 3, that sort of thing.
They're an incredible set of plays, those three.
They are. More people need to watch them.
They're what Game of
so
Thrones is
fun.
based on, isn't it? Is that era of history. It's such a
Absolutely.
great cycle of plays. Sorry, do carry on.
Absolutely.
I get passionate about Henry VI.
No, great.
It's a weird
Love
hobby
that.
of mine.
Let's talk about that on another podcast.
We'll do the Henry VI sequel.
But yeah, so basically the whole thing has been spearheaded by this wonderful man called Rob Miles. He is the artistic director. He has directed all 37 plays since March 2020. They did their last one last week, which was The Tempest.
I saw that on Twitter. That's amazing.
Yeah, they are officially finished now, which is incredible. Yeah, basically how it came about was I met Rob at a birthday party last year, 2019. Seems like a lot longer
when
ago.
Parties were a thing.
When parties were a thing. And just met him there. And then when he started this project, he shortly after, sort of a few weeks after they started, Rob got in contact and went, look, this is a 24/7 job and I have not slept in weeks, and I just need to build a team around me of people that can help me with this, and I would love it if you could do the casting every week. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a pleasure to cast a Shakespeare every week. And to be honest, it wasn't that different to a normal job. The only difference was the deadline. So, you know, they'd get a load of submissions in for people that wanted to do this project, whatever one we were doing that week, you know. So each week I would have a new set of submissions, which would vary between sort of 150 people up to close to 600, depending on the play.
Wow.
You know, people want to do Hamlet and Midsummer more than they want to do Henry VI, for example.
Yeah.
They
don't know anything.
People. Yeah, and I cast it every week. I did it for 20 weeks. And yeah, while it wasn't hugely different, you know, I still looked at people's spotlights, their backstage profile, because this was worldwide. This was a worldwide thing. It wasn't just an English thing or a British thing. It was worldwide. So I looked at people's personal websites, for example, and I watched showreels. So that's not very different to how I cast normally. The only difference was I had to do it in 24 hours. So
wow.
Yeah, it was an amazing project. It gave me a plethora of people to add to my list of people to watch. It was amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. What sort of work are you casting right now, and what do you want to be working on in the future?
Yeah, so I've got 3 feature films I'm working on, an audio drama, which is fabulous. It's about women, for whatever reason, do not want to have children, which I feel like is such a taboo sort of subject that's not talked about very much. Yeah. And it's a podcast of 12 actors that we're building to do monologues about their story and why they don't want children for whatever that reason may be. It's fascinating. It's amazing. I'm really enjoying it. And I've got 2 short films on. One of them is filming on Sunday. So I've got to get a wriggle on with that. And then multiple things in the pipeline that haven't been greenlit yet, which I can't really discuss at this time. And then, yeah, I assist as well. So I'm assisting on commercials and a TV project as well. So it's very exciting.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
Honestly, Sydney, it's been so lovely chatting to you this evening. You've given us a huge chunk of your evening and some great advice and stories. No, not at all. It's been an absolute pleasure for you to go through all these questions that we wanted to ask you. We're very, very grateful for you giving us that time and knowledge. So thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned something.
We look forward to having you back in the room very, very soon.